Good morning, geometry students. Just finished chapter 12. Y'all took the test on that the other day, and we're going to backtrack a little bit. We're going to look at chapter 11. Chapter 11 is about solids, finding the surface area of solids, finding the volume of solids. These are solids. Um, uh, Sometimes they're called polyhedrons because all of the faces are polygons. And so we're going to start with prisms today. A prism is a polyhedron that has two bases. So there are two shapes that are just alike that are called the bases. This is called a trapezoidal prism. This would be a square prism. This would be octagonal prism. So prisms have two bases that are just alike, and then they have lateral faces. So the lateral faces are these rectangles that you see on this trapezoidal prism. The lateral faces are these rectangles that you see. So if you also, they have lateral edges. These, of course, would be the lateral edges. They have base edges. If you look at the base, these would be the base edges, and of course, they have all the vertices. So that's what a prism is. The altitude of a prism is if you drew a segment that is perpendicular to one base and you draw it to the other base and be perpendicular to both bases, then that would be the altitude of the prism. So this is also a prism. Now you'll see that this prism is leaning. I'll talk about that in just a second. But if you drew this line straight down to the plane that contains the other base, it would be perpendicular to this base, perpendicular to this base. That would be the altitude. The height, of course, is just the length of the altitude of a prism. So there are two kinds of prisms. There's a right prism, which is straight up and down. All the faces of a right prism are rectangles. And then there's an oblique prism that is leaning. And so you can see that face is a rectangle, but then some of the faces are not rectangles. These, of course, are parallelograms. So you have a right prism straight up and down. You have an oblique prism that is leaning. So that's some of the definitions, some of the words that you'll see as you work these problems. So we're going to talk about surface area today. So to find the surface area, let's just start with a problem, and then I'll give you the formula for the surface area. So let's start with this problem. That is a prism, a rectangular prism. The base is a rectangle that's 3 centimeters by 4 centimeters, and the height of this prism is 5 centimeters. So there are 4 faces that we call lateral faces, and those are the faces that are not bases. For example, in this prism, all of these lateral faces are rectangles. The bases are octagons. And so the first thing that we do to find the surface area is we find the lateral area. So the front and the back are both rectangles that are 4 centimeters by 5 centimeters. The right and the left are both rectangles that are 3 centimeters by 5 centimeters. So the lateral faces, if you add all of them up, you have 4 times 5 plus 3 times 5 plus 3 times 5 plus 4 times 5. You could factor the 5 out of that. The 5, of course, is the height. And what you have left, 4 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 4, is the perimeter of the base. So to find the lateral area, all that we're doing is we're multiplying the height, which is 5, we factored that out, times the perimeter of the base. So 5 times 14, which is 70. So that is the lateral area on this problem. The lateral area is 70, and that is also shows you the formula for finding the lateral area of a prism is the perimeter of the base times the height. So just add up the perimeter, multiply it by the height, and that will give you the area of all of those rectangles, the lateral faces, or in other words, the lateral area of the prism. Of course, to find the surface area, we also have a top and a bottom of this. So we have the two bases that we have to add, and the base has an area on this one of 4 times 3. So you have the area of the base 4 times 3, and then you have another one 4 times 3. So I take the lateral area, which is 70, and then I add to that the 2 of the bases. And the base area is 4 times 3, which is 12. And I add 2 of those, so it's 70 plus 2 times 12, or 70 plus 24, which is 94. Now that will give you the total area of all of the faces. We call that the surface area. So where the lateral area has the formula, the perimeter times the height, the surface area is the lateral area plus 2 bases. Now, that capital B just stands for the area of the base. And what formula do you use? Well, it depends on what the base is. For example, if this was your prism you were finding the surface area of, finding the area of the lateral faces would be easy. You would just take the perimeter, multiply by the height. And then when you find the area of the bases, you have to remember how to find the area of a regular polygon, which of course is 1/2 the apothem times the perimeter. So that's how we find the surface area of a prism. Let's do one more example. This is a triangular prism. And the triangle on the top, it's a right triangle, and the triangle on the bottom is just like it, but it's a right triangle, has a leg of 3, another leg of 4, which means the hypotenuse is 5. And I could find that by doing the Pythagorean theorem. 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. So the perimeter of the base is 3 plus 4, which is 7, plus 5. The perimeter of the base is 12. So the lateral area is the perimeter of the base, which is 12, times the height. So your lateral area is 12 times 6. And then the surface area is the lateral area plus 2 bases, and that's a triangle. 1/2 base times height will be the area of that triangle. So 1/2 3 times 4 is the area of the triangle, which is 6. So that's the area of one of the triangles. So the surface area is the lateral area, which is 72 plus 2 of the bases, or 2 times 6. And that is the surface area. So those are prisms. This is a cylinder. The cylinder, of course, has a circle on the top and the bottom. And it's just like a prism, except instead of being a polygon for the base, it is a circle. So all of those, the same definitions. These are the bases. Then this is the instead of having a bunch of faces, we just have the area of this part. And but the formulas are done the exact same way. So with a cylinder, so there's the lateral area, there's the prism. The formulas for a cylinder are going to be the same thing. But if you think about it, with this cylinder, if I want to find the lateral area, it's like this. So you have a cylinder like this right here. If you could open it up, it's a rectangle. And so the lateral area really is the area of a rectangle. Now, this is the circumference, and this is the height. So instead of having a perimeter, you have a circumference and a height. So the lateral area of a cylinder, instead of the perimeter times the height, is the circumference. And you remember the formula for circumference is 2 pi r. So it's 2 pi r times the height. It's really the exact same formula, except it's a circle instead of a polygon. So it's 2 pi r times the height. And the surface area takes this lateral area and you add to it 2 bases. Of course, the formula for the area of a circle is pi r squared. So you have your lateral area plus 2 circles. So you have your lateral area, 2 pi rh, plus 2 pi r squared being the area of a circle. So that's the formula for the surface area of a cylinder, which really is the exact same thing as the formula for a prism. It's just the bases are circles instead of polygons. So let me do one example of this. If you have a cylinder that has a radius of 4 and the height of 6, all you have to do is plug it into the formula. So the lateral area is 2 pi, the radius is 4, and the height is 6, 2 pi r h. There's your lateral area, which is what, 24, 48 pi. And the surface area is going to be the lateral area, which is 48 pi, plus 2 times the bases, and the bases are pi r squared, so 2 times pi times the radius squared, 2 times pi r squared, so that is 48 pi plus 1632 pi, which is what, 80 pi. And that is the surface area of that cylinder. There we have surface area of prisms, surface area of cylinders. So prism. It's also where you get sent. If you do illegal math, you get sent to prism. You don't want to do illegal math.